Can you hear it? Welcome to Relay.
Hello, everyone. Let's
Hello.
just open one of these up.
Hello.
So, welcome to the Relay Station on this 9th day of the 9th month of the not 9th year. Damn it, that fell apart fast. My name is David.
We're 8 years late.
Yeah, 8 years, yeah. Or 2 years early, something like that. My name is David, and today I am a penguin. Less for the fact that I'm dressed in a partial tuxedo, and more because I'm just not that fly. I'm joined by Sunjammer, who we really hope never lives up to his name, the sun being slightly integral to this thing called life, at least according to scientists, but really, what the hell do they know? We're also joined by the AutoDJ, who should really probably speak entirely in song. Or is it sing entirely in talking? I'm not sure, don't judge me.
Sing entirely in talking.
Sing entirely in talking. And last but not least, we're joined by Darjanator. Mr. Darj, it's your first time on the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, I'm Darj, and I do things. It's pretty much it. I have been a Star Citizen backer since, early 2012, I think. Or was it 13? It was so long ago I can't even remember. And with a good friend called Meyer, I run a Star Citizen podcast called Fortnightly Frontier. We go out every 2 weeks, or at least try to be.
I think I know that Meyer guy. I think I've heard of him once or twice.
I've seen him somewhere.
Yeah.
I put my finger on it.
Yeah.
It was recent though. It was recent.
Yeah.
Yes, I think by now I can officially say that I am the less popular half of the Fortnightly Frontier podcast duo. You get
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
So we're gonna get to the Star Citizen talk in just a moment. We've actually got a fair bit to talk about this week. Before that, though, I want to make a slightly, well, not a slightly sad, but a sad announcement. So unfortunately, Nakara's brother passed away last week. The funeral's today, so the members of Relay who are around him are at that funeral right now. That's Nakara, Canadian Syrup, and Stormy Winters. They're all there. Basically, just from all the rest of us who can't get there, our thoughts are with him and his family. If anyone wants to donate to the charity that his brother was a part of, I've posted a link to that in the chat. It was called NeighborLink Calgary, and our thoughts with Nakara and his family. So, yeah. And now let's talk about Star Citizen, because
Because that's for more fun than funerals.
yeah, it's
Slightly
more fun. Slightly more fun than
slightly.
funerals. Yeah.
You can't have funeral without the word fun.
It's true. It's true. So let's have some fun in memory of something.
Okay, I can get down with that, yes.
Yeah. So before we started, Mr. AutoDJ, you were saying that there were two new little tidbits of news that just came out that I wasn't even aware of. Do you want to talk a little bit about those two?
Certainly. Information has been released by Ben Vlesnik from Cloud Imperium Games on the Ben's Day podcast with host Nikki D'Angelo. Ben has clarified a bit about the 600i, indicating that it will be available to take VIP missions. There was a slight miscommunication in the way that the developers who answered the Q&A answered the question. In addition, he revealed that the next game-changing ship, which will be released sometime in the future, will be a heavy civilian job-focused ship. No other details were provided.
I know I've said a few times what I think that heavy civilian focused ship will be. Sunjammer and Darjanator, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh man, I'm just glad it's not going to be an EA exec talking about the people they paid to market their games on Twitch and YouTube. You know, the game changers as they call them. I'm just happy it's not that. 'Cause that would have been, oh god.
They're the game changers, right? I'm with you.
You know, people cringe
you are all the game
about the
changers.
Gamescom presentation, but oh wow, that EA that was so cringe. I mean, there's nobody that'll be able to top that.
Eris, can you maybe ask Darjanator to stop swearing all the time? You keep saying that E word that we're not allowed to say on here.
I thought he was talking about
You mean
the
electronic access?
Yeah, the electronic
that
access.
one.
Oh yeah,
That's-
that
it's
one's
an
okay.
inverse. I hate to say it, but I actually liked the Gamescom presentation. I didn't think it was nearly as cringy as a lot of other presentations I've seen recently. I thought it was not bad. So
I thought some of the comments were on point,
Yeah.
especially in the second one when they were running. Everyone said, "Oh God, they did the commentary again," but they didn't. They just did their own stuff. And,
Yeah.
Glenn,
some of the jokes were pretty good, I thought.
Yeah, some of them were terrible, but some of them were good. So,
Yeah, most of them were terrible, yeah, but some were quite good, yeah. I did chuckle a bit once or twice, yeah.
I chuckled a few
Thanks,
times,
Paul.
which is better than normal, to be honest, in my opinion.
Mm.
So
I was actually at the Gamescom presentation, and CIG, please, for the love of God, you've made CitizenCon a sitting down event. Please make Gamescom a sitting down event. I
it
had
was
to
standing
watch.
only?
It was standing only. I had to watch over Disco's Lando's shoulder what's happening on his screen because I couldn't see the big presentation.
Really?
wow.
Yes. And I could actually see all the hardware they were using, and it's that made me slightly erect.
You mean the presentation itself did not?
Well, the presentation itself then made me fully erect.
Yeah. Combine the two and
I see.
Combine the two, and I have no more use for Viagra.
And welcome to the last episode of Relay Station.
hey, you know what? We got to go out with a bang. So, okay, so the game-changing ship. My thoughts on it.
To go back on topic.
Yeah, back on topic. So my thoughts on the game-changing ship is actually that it's going to be something that builds and installs bases, because they've been talking a lot about the bases in the game, and I don't think that it's going to be something like Star Wars Galaxies where you've got an icon in your inventory and you click the icon and place it on a place in the planet. Like, there has to be a way to build player bases, and that's what I think this ship is going to do. AutoDJ, any thoughts on that?
A construction ship of some kind would most certainly be interesting to see, though I think it might be a little bit early for them to release something like that, as that would confirm additional mechanics and feature creep that they need to worry about. It's possible that you may end up with something like a giant garbage scow, which is something that is not featured, or we could end up with something like a tugboat ship, something that was mentioned earlier in the game's development, but not really released because it wasn't something that was hugely popular. However, it would do a great thing to actually breathe life into the game. The other option that I could see is a small passenger transport, such as a van or cargo ship, similar to the Argo, except, with the ability to jump and quantum travel.
What do you think, Sunjammer?
Well, it has to be a quote-unquote game changer, so I'm pretty much with you. They've hyped it up so much. It has to be something that we have, A, not been told about, B, doesn't exist, and C, introduces some new mechanics. Otherwise, it's not a game changer. I mean, some people were saying like interdiction, but we've been told interdiction is going to happen. So a ship that does interdiction isn't a quote unquote game changer. It's just
One of the Avenger
the
variants,
implementation of a good.
like lots of these ships that are currently existing should do. One of the Avenger variants was said that it does interdiction at some point, right? Like, if I remember correctly.
But they've talked about the mechanic where you can drop these sort of points, these items that can drag people out of quantum jump. But that's not a game changer because we've been told about that. So it has to be something we haven't been told about. So I think it is something like a construction ship. And if it turns out to just be, another passenger transport or something like that, I think they'll have a little egg on their face for overhyping it. Yeah.
It won't be the first passenger transport. Yeah.
Exactly.
Because we already know about
have
the
one.
Genesis Starliner. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Maybe it's something more exciting for mixing drinks, you know?
Or maybe it's something like
shit.
plant your own checkpoint rings for custom races. Like
No,
a ship
I
that
know what it
blends
is.
those.
I
What
know
is it?
what it is. You know, in Fifth Element, the ramen truck.
Yes.
That's what it is. That's the game
I
changer
would
ship.
approve of a food truck.
It's a food truck.
Can I finally
That is a game
make my
changer.
fucking sandwiches then?
Yeah.
In fact, I will go so far as to say the game is virtually unplayable without a food truck.
Completely unplayable. 0 on 10 if no food truck.
And
Right.
to be honest, they just told us all about the buff system that they haven't been using
Yeah.
in this week's ATV.
Mm.
This is another use for it.
Food truck. Okay,
truck.
you heard it
Game
here
changer.
first. We're gonna have. I personally am going to run a shawarma truck in the verse. Shawarma for everyone. So let's talk.
Excellent.
Let's talk a little bit about
What would be the shawarma buffs?
bad breath.
Mm-hmm. So that's actually a debuff
Yeah.
for like
Talking with people.
For talking people, yeah. I was just
You say
that's the
debuff,
word.
I say it's a negative buff. Potato.
Definitely negative on the talking to people, but 400 tons of energy, and yeah, I want shawarma now. I'm just
Does it
gonna.
help
Can we
or
just?
hinder?
And if you get, I think actually if you get drunk, it should reduce the drunk effect as it does in real life.
Yes. Sorry, I'm typing. So let's move on. I'd ask
He's
AutoDJ.
noted down that idea so you can sell it to Ben in the next
Yeah,
Citizen Call.
exactly. I'd ask AutoDJ, but we know that the AutoDJ doesn't eat, so, or at least doesn't eat human food. He
Correct.
just eats the hearts and souls and minds and dreams of small children.
I do enjoy microchips.
So before we move on to the content of ATV itself, let's talk just a tiny bit about the video editing. So Sunjammer,
Yes.
you transcribed most of the ATV this week. The full transcription is not done because the burn down
Burn down's
section,
not done.
the burn down's not done, but you did the rest of it.
Yeah. Yes. So, fortunately, in theory, I only have to listen to it when I'm transcribing, but I do tend to kind of watch as they do it, just because it sometimes helps if you don't catch a word.
Yeah.
So yeah, the editing, especially when they were cutting on every other word, was slightly distracting, and I was like, "Why is this happening?" But they actually went on air and told us in happy hour, so now we can't
Yep.
really say anything about it. So.
And that was completely obvious to me from the get-go because I do a lot of editing, and especially in the earlier episodes of the Fortnightly Frontier podcast, when we actually used proper recording, and I have no idea what was going through my head when I wanted to do that. We were also full of ums and ahs and you knows, and
Yeah.
you have to cut those out if you want your person to appear at least coherent. And you can imagine that with the sort of stress these people are all under to get 3.0 out right now, they are so stressed out and tired. The last thing they want to do is get in front of a camera and explain what they're doing and what they've been up to. And because they're not reading from a script, they are just winging it. So these people are not professional presenters.
They're not
And
like
they
us,
will-
obviously.
They're not like us. No. And they will.
and
If you
yeah,
watch Reddit, you before there were so many comments like about don't they just cut these ums and ahs and rs out, and then they do, and people complain about it as well.
yeah, no one can ever be happy. AutoDJ.
Yeah, I think it's a nice look behind the scenes, though. We've got, in one way, it shows how well they have been doing it, because we didn't notice, and we had all these beautifully fluently speaking developers who were telling us all these interesting details, and they were doing it. It was great. Because of the B-roll that was running over the top of them, we didn't see all these edits.
Exactly.
Because they didn't have enough B-roll this time. We actually got to look behind the curtain, so it was, and we go, oh, that's how it's done. So it really, in some ways, it shows you in every other episode what a great job they've done. My one concern is, are they going to edit Tony Z? Because I'll be sad if they do.
They better not edit Tony
No,
Z.
I actually have a counter on a little piece of paper, and every time he has it, I put a little number 1 on it, and oh, god damn it! Sorry about that.
It's all good.
So unprofessional of me.
Mr. AutoDJ, what are your thoughts on the editing this week?
Seeing as I have no visual processors with which to watch the actual display, I had no problems at all with the editing this week. I thought the audio was fantastically well done, though I do agree an additional amount of B-roll, even if they had rerun some of the stuff that they had, would have been a fantastic addition and a good way to cover up some of the jump cuts.
That you didn't see.
But I will have to say that the cuts were done very well, and the sentences actually flowed together very nicely. We just saw that there were cuts.
It looked bad visually, but audio-wise, it was nice. Like it did just flow.
audio
So
was fantastic.
Yep. So let's talk a little bit about the audio, because at the end of the day, the episode this week was basically entirely about audio. It was all about breathing, which, for those of you that were wondering at the beginning of this show why the episode is called Deep Breaths, well,
It's because I'm sick, I'm coughing, and have to mute myself all the time, and I'm trying not to die.
yes, that too. But I mean, the entire episode was all about the actor system and how the actor system ties into the room system and the stamina component system and all of these different systems that all work together to, in effect, say that you can sit there in your helmet breathing and it knows what you're breathing. And like, I've suddenly had this idea of, like, someone calls you saying that they've got no oxygen, and you show up and you sell them an oxygen tank, right? As like a search and rescue thing, and you sell them an oxygen tank, but you actually didn't fill it with oxygen. You filled it with, carbon monoxide or something, and they plug it in and die.
Who are you, garbage woman?
Yes.
Or
You could just sell them an empty at that point.
I mean, you
It'd
could,
be
but
cheaper.
you could, but that'd be less fun.
If
No,
they're
but
floating in space, it's not like they're going to realize that it weighs less because it's empty.
True, but there might be like a little dial on it saying 100%.
No.
I don't know.
There's still canisters still have mass.
I'm just-
mean, just because they have no weight, they still have inertia.
The
That's how
idea
physics
though,
works.
that, like, they were actually saying that you breathe in oxygen and you will actually breathe out CO2.
Yep.
Someone else speak, because I don't know what to say to the ridiculous depths that this system goes to.
It was very interesting. I transcribed it, obviously, so I was kind of like, they just kept going and going and going and adding things on. So the actor status system it started life as simply a system to handle breathing suffocation in space, because they wanted, obviously, to force you to use your helmet. And then in order to do that, as you say, they had to put the room system in place so that they could have the room volume, and they could define its atmospheric composition and also how air travels from room to room. So you can do explosive decompression. If you open a door into a room that doesn't have anything, the two rooms will find an equilibrium. The atmosphere will split between them, that sort of thing. If you leave a door open on a habitation module, presumably in space, you'll just lose all the air. And all that sort of stuff. And then I thought it was really clever, because you were talking about the helmet there. What I thought was really clever is they basically made your helmet a room.
Yep.
That's exactly what they did.
Yeah, so it's a logical room. Obviously, it isn't a physical room, but it's a logical room. So it has air. You breathe out. They had to add on a scrubber to get rid of the CO2 you produce. It's got a connection to the air tank on your suit, so the air flows from the tank, which presumably is another room
I
as well.
I actually think it's a lot closer to a proper room than you think, because a proper room is made up out of the modular walls and the roof, and then an air barrier is inserted into the same location.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's
they
the same
basically
thing
draw a
that
big
happens
blue
with the
volume.
helmet. So you got the 3D model of the helmet, and you have the barrier for the oxygen around your head. So it's kind of the same thing going, yeah.
And we actually saw something nice in Burndown where they had the blue volumes. So they had just the normal sort of cuboid volumes, and they realized that they weren't connecting in the outpost. So they had to create these fancy shapes with little dents for the doors, so they could actually touch.
That was so good. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
so
that
good.
was- that was-
Otherwise,
built-in
you
lumberyard
if you
feature.
stay in the door, you will suffocate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that, AutoDJ?
That was actually a built-in lumberyard feature that they didn't have to create themselves, but came bundled with the engine they've changed over to.
But I thought that changing over to lumberyard is going to take a year or something like that.
It took them a
No.
year, obviously.
It's
No.
it's Schrodinger's lumberyard because they are
With a
using
capital Y.
Yeah, they are using and not using a lumberyard at the same time, and you only know by depending on, I don't know what day of the week it is, or
Yeah.
you roll a random dice.
I think that what they're showing there is incredibly impressive, and not just the whole breathing system, but also like how they did the audio, having the whole range from 20 BPM up to 190 BPM of breaths per minute. That's
And actually having the sound guy almost
pass
out
from doing it. Yeah.
That shows you how dedicated the devs are. They're willing to risk physical harm.
And then, but I
Kill a
found
few
it really
brain cells.
interesting because they did all that, and then they realized, well, the animations now have to match that, but you can't really, record an actor doing that in all the. So they had to start building procedural animations for some of this stuff because there's no other way to do it, and just the amount of detail that's gone in. Any other game would be like, what do we do to deal with him outside without air? Well, outside without air, die. Done. What else do we need?
Yeah.
It'd be
Even
like in
Arma
2.0.
doesn't go to these lengths.
Yeah.
I mean, Arma doesn't have space, but it does have a stamina system, but it doesn't go to these lengths.
Nothing else does. AutoDJ, you don't have to deal with any of this in real life because you are a machine. But how do you feel about
Correct.
so much focus being put on something as simple and as honestly forgettable? None of us really think about it as breathing.
Well, you do think about it when you can no longer do it, such as when I evacuate all of the air in the station to address the occasional squirrel infestation problem we have. I think it is an absolutely amazing piece of technology.
I thought it was a
and
monkey
never
problem
really
you guys had.
explored in games like this. No, the monkey or the staff.
Oh,
the
right,
squirrels
sorry.
are just that Desmarius sends to us occasionally. And, when the staff decide to open boxes without actually looking at them, we end up with squirrel infestations.
Right.
It's
Sorry.
common.
It's like a real live version of opening an attachment from an email that you didn't check beforehand.
Exactly.
Just with squirrels instead of viri.
That's with squirrels. Are viruses digital squirrels?
Honestly, really, really neat, because it's also going to have effects of preventing people from, being bunny hopping asshats and
Yeah.
destroying everyone's immersion. Because you're not going to be able to bunny hop everywhere.
Now, one of the basically the first person I go to with all of my comments about Star Citizen, and he comes to me because we're best friends in real life. He's been on this once or twice, but he made some good points that I thought that he really likes how in-depth the mechanic is, because if they're going this in-depth for something as simple as breathing, think about how in-depth that they'll go into for other game mechanics, ones that you actually play a lot more. It's a really good sign. But what do you guys think about the values of it? Like, I have a feeling they pumped the values up to show us to show us everything in the time that they had, because it seemed like in the demos that they were showing, you jump 3 times and be out of breath.
Oh, well, not everyone can be as in shape as you, Eris. I mean, some people are couch potatoes like myself. And if I do jump up and down 3 times in a row, I will run out of air and collapse in a very spongy and bouncy ball of flab and meat. So
It's a mental image now. I can't get it out of my mind.
But yeah, I think they just
They upped the values a bit.
they sped it up for brevity for the B-roll, but on the other hand, maybe they shouldn't, so they would be able to hide the cuts more effectively.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it's balancing. I mean, that's going to come. It's just they're demonstrating the system. It's not necessarily balanced. We'll get that when we start playing it, like everything else that they've ever done.
Yeah.
So they'll work out what they want it to be in terms of sprinting into combat, or you know,
but this is also
running between cover, how much jumping, vaulting you're allowed to do before you can't shoot straight.
This is a conversation I got myself into on Reddit about how I'm not really a fan of every person in Star Citizen having the same amount of stamina. Like I said, you have a person like me and you have a person like Usain Bolt, and he would be able to sprint around and bunny hop around the battlefield and still aim and shoot people in the head. And if I did that, I would collapse after 5 seconds. There should be some way of boosting that, but then you get this whole RPG thing that CIG does not want to go.
And you end up with min-maxing. So if you say
exactly
people that do the military campaign have more stamina but less something else, as stamina is the most important stat, then everyone will be from the military, and you'll have no variety. And
doesn't have to be. You don't have to finish the Squadron 42 game to be.
I was just giving that as an
Citizen.
example. But yeah, it was an example. So whatever it is, people will do the one that gives them the biggest advantage. I mean, we've heard of people saying, if the female character has a smaller hitbox, I will be a female character.
Yeah.
Just to get that advantage in game.
Keep in mind, one of the things that CIG has been saying for a long time is that they actually aren't going to be able to allow much character customization when it comes down to it, because all of the ship stuff has to work. There's only a few inches of height difference that you can allow for. There's only a little bit of weight difference that they can allow for, because they're making a game that's a bit more full. They actually have to restrict the characters. So I have a feeling all of our characters are going to have the same base 100 stamina, and it's all going to depend on the shit that you wear and the equipment that you equip, right?
Yes.
Right. Well, it is something that
will definitely have an effect on it.
Yeah.
It is, and it is something they.
Go ahead, Darjanator.
Well, it is something that I have to. It's one of the ways they have to go down. They made the choice, and it's because everyone in Star Citizen is supposed to have done a military stint for Squadron 42, and just like the armies of today, they have very rigid and almost very narrow specifications for people that can be. I mean, they can't be shorter than a specific height, and they can be taller than a specific height, or skinnier, or fatter, or bulkier. So the armed forces even today are almost identical when it comes to individuals. So it does have similarities.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Otto?
I was referring to equipment limits and that sort of stuff. Certain suits, I'm sure, will end up adding to your stamina in certain situations. Take, for example, the racing suit. That one will add to your blackout resistance stamina, but it may cause running in it to require more stamina because it constricts blood flow to the legs. Things of that nature those are ways that they will be able to have meaningful effect on the amount of stamina a character has. As mentioned in chat, there is also the GTA 5 San Andreas type of things that you can do, such as working out to increase your stamina. Yeah, it may only be, 5 points. So, sure, you put forth an hour's worth of effort, great, you got it. But not everyone will do it, and those that don't won't be greatly penalized for it.
And Gritspitter's saying in chat, apparently Aaron, I'm assuming during Gamescom, spoke about, possibly food and drink having a small impact on stamina regen rates, like eat before you go into battle kind of thing. And
but it's not going to be like in Skyrim, like
no.
you get to 2 hit points and you eat 50 wheels of cheese and then you're back to full.
No. But it would be like my friend is badgering me in the other window, which is great. It's kind of like in Total War. Have you guys all played Total War? No?
Nope.
They have a freshness of troops system. So your troops can be fresh, tired, exhausted, right? Like winded.
Now I'm disappointed. Because in my mind, it was like freshness of vegetables. You go up to them and you grope them and
see how fresh they are,
whether they're firm and So it's freshness.
Wouldn't you just smell to determine how fresh they are?
They're troops. They're all going to smell the same. But that kind of idea
and badly as well.
And if I'm thinking way back actually to when they announced the Endeavor, the ship. One of the stated purposes of the Endeavor was like if you had two orgs or something that were battling over a space station, one org parked an Endeavor there, and they'd be able to respawn their org mates at that Endeavor and fly them into battle. And then you have less of a distance to travel, so you're less tired when you get to the battle. And then you get into the battle, and you don't want to rush right to the front line right away, because you'll get to the front line and you'll be useless. Right? Like I like all of this.
Potential.
So much potential. It's a good word. So one other thing that they noted during Happy Hour this week was that in 3.0, all the suits are going to be the same oxygen wise, but after 3.0, they're going to start varying. Different suits will have different, more or less oxygen in their tanks. I'm assuming that like a heavy armor will be able to carry more oxygen than a light armor, that kind of stuff. So the suits
or
are
maybe less.
Maybe less too. Yeah,
because it might be to balance some of the other advantages. They've talked about balancing heavy armor with vision, because obviously you can do things like equip. You've got more armor, you can equip heavier weapons. So it has those advantages. So
but that just means
the downside
you're carrying a lot more weight.
You are carrying a lot more weight, so it'll affect your stamina. So,
and it might even be...
I just had this idea.
Go.
Performance enhancing drugs. Like a drug that you would take that boosts your stamina regeneration for 2 hours, but afterwards you crash and you're barely able for like 6 hours afterwards, after the effects goes off, you cannot do anything other than walk around, otherwise you just collapse.
I like that. And that's another reason for the Endeavor. I mean, the Endeavor is pitched as farming and science and drugs. And if people start making these drugs, and like you could buy one off the shelf at a store that'll give you 10 minutes of extra energy, or you could buy one from, friggin' Shiver Bathory on his Endeavor somewhere, and his will give you wings for 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you want to buy from?
Crimson bovine male. Ooh.
Unfortunately, the side effects of shivers are it kills you outright afterwards.
When your heart explodes, that's the 4-hour mark.
But will that be actually the death of a spaceman, or will you just respawn? Or will you completely die if you go?
You need a new artificial heart at that point.
That's a good question. Something we need an update on. Like we really need an update on the death of a spaceman mechanics. Kind of a even just a single statement of yes, everything in Death of a Spaceman is still planned, or no, some of the stuff has changed. Here's what's changed.
There was actually an interview on the games floor presentation floor after the event. What a Russian guy, I think it was. I don't know his name, but I did watch this video. And one of the questions he asked was, "Is the death of Statesman has it
Changed at all?
has it changed at all?" And Chris said no. And it was an interview
Oh.
with Chris.
Good.
So he said no, it's all pretty much. So that is something we've had.
Oh,
albeit-
Hobgoblin? Hobgoblin?
King Goblin.
King Goblin?
It's the special edition that's only brewed on the full moon.
What?
Yes, and it's 6.5% ABV.
What? I can't get that. Give me it now.
Mm,
Funny,
it's actually 6.6%.
funny side story. Full moons change shit. My wife is a nurse, and she works, all kinds of days. But anytime she's working the full moon, people go nuts, like more nuts than normal. It doesn't affect everyone.
That's a reason why they call them lunatics.
The full
Is
moon
it?
is real, man.
Is it? Well, yes, of course I can see it, but I mean, is it psychosomatic though, or is it actually? Do you think it actually has an effect? I think it's more psychosomatic because people think they kind of like
I think
they
it's
have
confused
urges,
people
but they
that
think
don't know.
it's a full moon. It's fine.
But it like she works mostly with like old confused people that don't even know that it's a full moon. So I think it has some actual effect on them. This is a complete aside. I apologize.
But then, what if you're flying on a ship full of old people and
A retirement
It-
home
it-
ship.
yeah, retirement
Game
home
changer.
ship. That's the
Game changer. Retirement
No,
home.
but you pass through Stanton and you pass through the area where Yella is full. Will they go all crazy for 5 minutes?
CIG, new gameplay mechanic you
It
have
would
to
be an
implement.
interesting effect.
Be a game changer.
Game changer. Okay, so a few years ago, Red
Sorry, but
won.
I made myself laugh so much with my own joke. because that's-
A few years ago, Red 1 was like the joke of the community. Is Game Changer this year's? Like everything is a game changer?
Could be a toss up between that and punches above its weight,
Yes.
or punches above its class. I
Ben
can't remember
did
which
make
way.
a very strong effort to try and get the punches above his weight, or its weight, through happy hour this weekend, and it failed miserably.
Speaking of Ben and ships, I want to go. We got a decent ship update this week in happy hour, and I kind of want to go over some of it.
Please do, because I haven't seen Happy Hour and I would like to have the news.
So here's the quick news on ships from Happy Hour. So new ships that are locked down for 3.0. That's the Aurora rework, the Cutlass Black rework, the Dragonfly, the Nox, the Ursa Rover, the Aquila, and the Prospector.
I'm
The-
sorry, it's the Aquila, but okay, good.
Aquila.
Go on. No, it's not.
Chris has
Potato,
said
potato.
The
Chris-
exploration version of the Constellation.
There we go.
It's
Better.
Latin. It's not Spanish, so
Uh,
it's Aquila.
Actually, it looks Latin, which is very close to Italian, and that's exactly
Yes, but if you go on space.com/constellation pronunciation guide, it will tell you that the constellation Aquila, which is Latin for eagle, is pronounced Aquila.
And if you go to Italy, to the L'Aquila region, it's... Anyway,
You just said it.
Whoops.
anyway.
Anyway,
Uh,
yeah, good.
where
That's
are we?
good to know. Good to know.
Where-
Also, something that
yo.
I've been campaigning for: the turrets on the constellation close.
Close?
Yes, they retract and the thing closes.
I hate the...
You
Constellation.
hate the constellation?
I just
Why?
hate the I
Don't
find
go
it...
there.
I find it ugly as sin.
Keep
It's a
went there.
penis ship. It has to be there.
All ships are
Looks
penis.
like a penis.
You've already got the Freelancer. The Freelancer's a penis ship.
Yeah.
So moving on, continuing. So the Reclaimer is not complete. A while ago, there was some confusion that they were saying that there were only 3 rooms left. What they were actually saying was that there are 3 rooms left for the art phase. So there were
not completion.
Yeah, that's not completion. It's for art. So there's probably parts of the Reclaimer that aren't even still done in like gray box yet. So the Reclaimer is not complete yet. The Cutlass Blue and Red are being worked on currently by Josh Coons. Once he's finished, those, he's going to work on the Connie Phoenix. The 300i rework is scheduled for December, but it's not guaranteed to start then. And the Merchantman and Carrick haven't started work yet, and we'll get more information on the Origin X1 in the next couple of weeks. AutoDJ, any thoughts on all that ship stuff?
I'm looking forward to having more ships available to me.
Do you need any more ships?
Insert generic answer here.
Yes.
I thought you had them all.
My currently, but when more are released, I will need access to more of them. Thankfully, I still have the access codes to the base's bank accounts.
Nice. Assuming they have money.
Yeah.
They do.
They got more money than Relay.
The Howling Monkey doesn't like me to discuss this fact, seeing how as technically it's his bank account. Just that there is money in it.
Darjanator, then Sunjammer, talk about your thoughts on the ships. I will be right back. I have to check on smaller Eris. Be right back.
Not small Eris, because I've met Eris and he is, in fact, quite small. What do I think about the ships? I'm looking forward to the Aquila because it is I think it's everything but confirmed to be the loaner ship for the Carrick, which I do own, and I've always liked the Aquila's. I like the cockpit. I hate the normal Constellation cockpit, but I do like the Aquila's. Other than that, I'm glad that they are actually just not sticking to what they said originally and just, as soon as the ship is done, we're putting it in. That's good. Even though the 3.0 release date keeps moving forward.
Moving away.
I don't mind, though. I mean, it's one thing to bitch about Chris Roberts and his overly optimistic quote-unquote promise of a release date, but one of the basic pillars of us becoming backers of Star Citizen is to give CIG as much time as they need. Period. That is what I hold on to, and they can take as much time as they need. I don't care about the release date of 3.0 moving forward, so long as they show us what they're doing and they're justifying why it keeps moving forward.
Yeah, and then you'll end up with more ships. From my point of view, I stopped buying ships after the Carrick, so I've got my baby.
Yep.
So, and again, I like the Aquila cockpit. I hated the rest of the ship, so when the Carrick came out, I was like, oh, there's my Explorer, done, upgraded. So it'll be interesting to see, because the rework of the Constellation was really nice. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with the Aquila. I might get.
It'd be interesting
some
to
buyer's
see what they do with
remorse.
Carrick.
Yes. But that's a long time coming, so that'll be middle next year, I think, probably. So before we get our
combining what we've seen from Anvil Design with the Mark II of the Hornet, and what was the ship that we saw recently that was Anvil as well? That's kind of like
is it a Hurricane?
The Hurricane, yeah, that's kind of spearheading the new Anvil design. Applying that to the concept of the Carrick. That would be interesting.
So, before we get into questions, let's see here. We've only got a few. So, Sunjammer, did you want to go through some of the stuff from Gamescom?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so we're going to try something. We don't know if it's going to work, but we're going to try it because we like breaking things. So,
we just want to test Eris a little.
Yeah, they're testing my patience.
So I'm actually going to turn over here and watch Twitch to see if something changes.
Okay, let's see.
Oh,
if
it
this
will. And
Oh,
it
I need
will-
to share it first. I
Yeah,
haven't
you need to
shared
share
first
it, and then
Congratulations, sir. You have broken the screen.
let's see if this works.
Share screen. I want that one. Oh, it's all gone black.
Let's roll
I'm
with it,
watching stream on
because
the screen.
this is as good as it's gonna go. Okay,
Nothing's happened yet.
No, it's nothing.
It'll happen in a moment.
There we go. I can
Oh,
see
okay,
it now. So
yes.
they've been sitting watching the
Oh, it's a
30 seconds.
PowerPoint.
we've got
It's
a
not really a
PowerPoint.
PowerPoint. It's basically a bunch of images. But this all kind of stemmed. I'm going to do a bit of a bait and switch, so apologies in advance. This all stemmed after Gamescom. I kind of went through it in great detail, and I wanted to try and do an article for a Relay to say, as the title says here, 10 things that you might have missed during the Gamescom 2017 presentation.
Congratulations on the clickbait title, by the way.
I know. Because there were a number of small things that I missed, that I noticed when I went through it almost, not quite frame by frame, but I went through it again after making notes for our first Relay station after the Gamescom event. So that was like 2 weeks ago. And I thought I better know what I'm talking about for that, since I was on that one. And I started noticing wee things I hadn't noticed when the presentation had been going. So I was like, I wonder how many I can find. But I only really found a few. So one of them, for example, was the new glass that Miles Eckhart had. I mean, he also had a new outfit, but I think pretty much everyone noticed that. So I was like, I can talk about the new glass and the fact that it's got an ice cube in it. And the reason I wanted to talk about the glass was it was...
I noticed the ice cube.
Yeah, so when Shiver and I had been down doing the Foundry 42 tour, and I'm sure I'm now clear from my NDA to talk about that, the guys there, the art guys, had been talking about how they were developing a new shader for glassware specifically for this, because if you look at the glass, it's got like a really thick bottom that doesn't reflect or refract or basically do anything. It looks quite opaque, and then you've got the thinness of the actual glass sides, and no one in games apparently really does a good glass shader, so they were developing one specifically for that. So I was like,
the problem with glass is because of the refractions, you have to do ray tracing, and ray tracing in real time is very expensive on the graphic side.
So anyway, so developing a shader to make it have that kind of nice look, so the sides would be very transparent, but the base would be nice and thick, and it would look like a good, heavy, high quality glass. So they did
someone you could cave someone's face in, basically.
If you were so inclined, and also the fact that it had an ice cube, and I was like, and the ice cube is physicalized, so I'm guessing it's got a rigid body on it, and it actually bounced around. You heard it clinking off the side of the glass, and you could see it moving. So I was like, that's great. So that was one of the small things I noticed. And then the other
one thing about the glass, did the liquid slosh about when he was moving it?
There is no liquid physics in it that I could see.
But they showed on one of the ATVs a very kind of gooey sort of thing going, but
so that's probably going to come. The other thing, another one of them was the hole that the one of the railguns, one of the Idrises shot with the railgun through the bow door of the other one. I was like, oh my god, that damage looks immense. I was really, and so there was a few things like that I found, but I couldn't find 10.
So you found 2.
I found a few more, but they were all connected with the equipment manager system. And as I started looking at the equipment manager system on the MobiGlass, which I originally thought was a complete mess, when I started to actually go through it frame by frame, because they really whizzed through it whenever they were equipping items. But when I started going through it frame by frame and actually seeing how it was working, I was like, hey, this is actually quite interesting. I should write an article on this instead. But I'm not a writer, so
that's okay.
I just made lots of notes.
Do you think Jake is a writer? Jake's not a writer.
So this is the bait and switch. So instead of the aforementioned one, I thought I'd do a quick chat about, and we could discuss some of my observations about the equipment manager, the tech behind it, and how it actually works.
Do it up.
Yep. So basically we saw the equipment manager in action in 3 different ways. We first of all saw it doing clothing. Then we saw how it worked with armor. And finally, we saw it working with weapons. So I'm just going to run through each of those sections, and they will show us different aspects of it. And then hopefully by the time we've done it, we'll know everything there is to know about it. If not, hashtag blame me. So this was the first time we saw it was shortly after Glenn's character had woken up in his Easy Hab, and they were going through all of the mobi-glass features, and then they eventually got on to the equipment manager. And we can see here the basic layout of the screen. So I kind of wanted to talk about its anatomy. Not his anatomy, its anatomy.
I mean, we could talk
is
about
quite
his.
splendid.
Yeah.
We can, and I do
mean,
have.
he's very well endowed. I have to say that. I mean, everybody has to say. I mean, just look at it.
Well, to quote Sean Tracy, 4K nether region textures.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, we'll notice that there is no underwear slot, so we can't actually confirm or deny whether those textures are in game because we can't take his underwear off.
I want. But what about my dream of dressing my male character in like French lace panties?
Yeah.
You're gonna have to find another game, probably a Japanese one for that.
And quite frankly,
Okay.
I don't like his blue boxers. I don't like blue boxers. I'd want like red or pink or something. Like, we better be able to change the colors on those.
So
Well, those are RSI branded boxers. That's why they're
so
blue.
maybe you can buy other ones.
Mm.
Yeah,
Maybe get some Space Kitten branded boxers if you want pink.
So the basic anatomy of it on the left hand side.
Benny's boxers, slurp and jerk.
On the left hand side, we've got a panel for.
I'm going to see myself out.
We've got panels for the item ports. We've also got two big buttons, and it's interesting to notice those. One's loadouts, which I'm guessing is where they will eventually have your pre-saved loadout. So once you make a loadout, they talked about how you could save it. That's not in game yet, but presumably that's under that button. And then you've got your inventory, button, which presumably shows you all the equipment that you're carrying. We don't seem to have a backpack concept yet, so that I guess is where that would be. Yeah. So what we're really looking at here, I guess, is a sort of create a new loadout screen, and we can see a number of slots that are written down there on the left hand side. So you've got your undersuit for footwear, gloves, pants, shirts, jacket, and hat. The first thing I noticed about that is they all have a solid bar on the left hand side of their entry. That will become important later on. Then they have this number, which is untitled, which if you kind of dig around some of the other screens, you find out that's the size that it can accommodate, just like on, ship weapons or whatever.
Right.
You have a size. Okay. So that's the size. Then you've got the name of the port, which is undersuit or footwear, and then it tells you whether he's wearing something. So we can see in his shirt one that he's actually wearing a T-shirt, the Bellow black T-shirt, which is actually blue. So
I think it's just a lighting issue, but yes.
Yeah.
So maybe he's actually wearing gray underwear, but it's only showing up.
It could be,
black,
yeah.
but it's showing up blue.
Could be.
In the middle, we've got the preview of the character, of what they're going to be wearing when
And a handsome chap he is.
Yes, indeed. Now, what I'm interested about this is that's obviously render to texture technology that they've been using for the whole of the mobi-glass, but we know that they also have the ability to render a texture within another texture. So I'm wondering if that's like a hologram 3D texture rendered on a 2D plane. So it's actually render to texture within render to texture, which means that preview at some point we should be able to rotate it, I'm hoping, like you can in a lot of other games.
Right. I think it's actually from what we've seen from other points of view, it's actually a 3D model holographized on the mobi-glass. So if you rotated it, you could actually, I mean, if somebody saw you selecting clothes, they'd see it from behind. They see it from behind, see the character from behind, yeah. Because it's not a projected 2D texture. I think it's actually a 3D model.
Oh, right. So you think they'll see the back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they'd have to see something, right?
Is sculpted tushy.
Yeah. Well, that would definitely mean that it's a holographic volume that then has been rendered, and then depending on your point of view, your camera will show it however it is. So that's interesting. And on the left side, we've just got this empty panel at the moment, which is showing us the
awaiting selection.
whatever's awaiting selection. Yeah, so whatever. That's so. My understanding of that is the left-hand side is your item ports. It's what you can select one of those, and then wherever you click on, it shows up on the left-hand side.
Right.
So I think that was all we had about that. Oh, the final thing is we can see a little icon down at the bottom that says empty port, and that shows us that tells us
They're all empty.
I guess it's a key, and they're all empty. So that's handy there.
Apart from the shirt.
Apart from the shirt, yeah. So then Glenn went on to pick on select the pants. So he clicked on the pants item port, and when he selected it, we could see a couple of things happen on the right hand side of the screen. So the name of the item port appears right at the top, and then underneath that we've got these I think they're placeholder strings, which they use for localization, because we've seen them before in a few other things where something hasn't been defined. But I like that because we can actually see that the type of the item is clothing legs, and then it's got a subtype of male. So essentially, this port on this character will allow you to equip anything
legs that's male.
Legs that are male. Yeah. So I was like, oh, that's an insight. And this
What
is
if I want to
saw-
wear a skirt?
Yeah. I
could-
think someone from CIG is going to have to answer us on whether or not I, as a male character,
Cross dressing.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
it will allow subtype unisex or something. Maybe that'll have a flag that can allow both.
Yeah, but what if I want to be as Izzard, Eddie Izzard, an executive transvestite? What
Exactly.
if I want to dress up as a princess, but still keep my male body?
I hope you can.
And hide your makeup in trees with squirrels.
Speaking of squirrels, oh,
Sorry.
Speaking of squirrel,
Where?
That was definitely for AutoDJ. So here on the right hand side also we can see this confirms my thoughts about this the number in the left hand panel being the size, because it's got size 1, 2, and they later check out when we get onto equipping the jacket, which I won't be going into. And we can also see down the bottom, currently equipped, nothing. So that all kind of ties up. So far, nothing really exciting there. I mean, it's interesting to see the types and the subtypes and how that might work. But the magic is yet to happen. So he picks his trousers. We see the icon change, and again down at the bottom it shows us that icon means currently equipped. And we get a little description.
size 1 pants not going to be enough.
So that again, not very exciting. This is where it started to get interesting for me. So he's now equipped them and he's returned back to the original screen. And if you look under the pants entry, the pants item port, you first of all
they
see
have
that
pockets.
exactly, it's changed its icon to a little kind of, I don't know if that's hazard sign, little triangle with an exclamation or an information in it, and that means change pending. But underneath it, we see a new item, for medical item, utility item, and weapon sidearm. So these are all the things that you can attach to your pants, and they don't have this bar on the left-hand side. They've got the little indented L. So as you rightly say, Darj, it's like a tree structure. So these are children of the pants. So by putting on the pants, you get these new items. Sorry, one thing I forgot to mention here on the previous screen. We've got the size and the name of the item, and then we've got 2 other numbers before the currently equipped icon, which are 0 and 1. I believe, because again, they haven't put titles on any of this, the 0 is the number available and the 1 is the number you've got equipped, because he's actually put them on. I think a moment before that, or the frame before that, is 1, 0 rather than 0 and 1. So that's me not paying attention to my notes while I'm talking. So he's equipped them.
It may also be the number of item or number of equipped children items for 0, because it's completely empty right now.
Could be. So basically, at this point, I'm going like, okay, so this is us seeing a couple of bits of technology that we've been told about before, but we've never really seen them in action. The The two bits of technology here are skeleton extensions and the item port system. And they were actually brought up, I think there was in February or March. Sean Tracy, Josh Sherman, and someone else did a like a round table on the character customization, and they went into item ports and skeleton extensions in great detail. But basically, to summarize them, the skeleton extensions was a bit of technology that actually already existed in CryEngine. I think we talked earlier about something that they got for free when they were doing the kind of fancy shapes for the room system. Well, this was another bit of technology that they got for free. So skeleton extensions already existed, but they'd never been used in one of the games. And what it does, it allows a piece of geometry to add additional bones, which are used for animation. So it allows additional bones to be added to your base skeleton when you add on that bit of geometry. And
I can have 3 more ribs.
You could, but more importantly,
third femur.
A third femur, yeah, a third leg. More importantly, though, it means that the base body.
Some male models already come with a third leg.
Oh,
He has a point. He doesn't have one himself because he is a digital construct, but he does have a point.
What have I done?
I know.
I need more alcohol.
Uploaded my programming to the relay station.
Why did I do that?
You should have learned from listening to the adventures of the Carpathia.
I was on the Adventures of the Carpathia a few times. I thought I learned. I didn't. I made a mistake.
Anyways,
Yeah,
back to
sorry.
discussing adding bones to the human anatomy.
Oh dear. Yes. So initially, when we first see the human body, it doesn't have a head. When you add the head on, you get bones for the eyes and the teeth and the hair. And then when you add the hair on, if you've got short hair, you might just have one bone for the hair. But if you had, say, a long hair or a ponytail, you might have multiple bones added so that you could animate that. And
So wait,
the
let
ponytail
me get
could-
this right. You get more bones the longer your hair is?
Yes.
Okay.
Also, I just wish they chose a different name for this because the sentence "you get bones for your eyes" is just what?
Doesn't sound quite right.
Hey,
No,
you
it
know what?
doesn't-
If you've
no.
got blue eyes, you get more bones.
My ex-girlfriend will be able to confirm that. Yes, she had blue eyes. But let's not detract
Yes,
this
sorry.
beautiful presentation anymore.
Sunjammer, how many more slides we got? What are we looking at?
We're about halfway through, but they get quicker because there's less to talk about.
Cool.
As time goes on.
Let's get through them quickly, and then we can get to some questions, and then we
We
can
can be
end.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other bit of technology, so that's the skeleton extension system. The other bit of technology they're using is the item port system, which, as we know, they developed for the ships,
Yeah.
and they basically picked it up and repurposed it for characters. And it allows them to define the logic. So if the skeleton extension is there for the geometry and the animation, the item ports is there for to tell you, as we saw in the previous slides, the type, the subtype, and the size of the port. In other words, what it can carry, what you can attach to it, and how big it is, essentially. And that's allowed them to address a couple of very fundamental issues that a lot of other games suffer from. The first one is they don't have to predetermine every single bone that they need for their bodies. They can just add them piece by piece, depending. Like I said, if you've got like long hair, you can have that animated. If you've got a long coat like a duster or a trench coat or whatever, again you can have additional bones so that cloth moves correctly. It avoids the kind of floating item system that a lot of other games have, where you have to predefine your the position that your gun sits on your back far enough away from your back so that if you're wearing the heavy armor, it sits right. It doesn't clip into everything. But if you're just wearing a shirt, it kind of floats 6 inches off your back.
Which is so annoying. It's like, oh, my character looks so cool that those weapons are floating in midair.
Exactly.
So CIG is actually taking a book from out of the software that I use for work, which is parametric 3D modeling for engineering stuff, and that has a lot of sub-assemblies, and you have these huge trees of sub-assemblies, and maybe the main assembly has a little bless you.
Sorry.
Like attachment to one of the parts that dictates its position and its like attachment points, and it's very, very in depth and very complicated to do, and games haven't been doing that at all yet. And it's very good to see that CIG is actually going with the time, with the technology that is possible and is presented to them.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, they can.
Please continue. Yes.
And it's I think also that they have the ability to override an existing a skeleton extension. So, for example, I believe that they talked about this, that if you are just wearing a shirt and it had a item port or a skeleton, a bone for the weapon attachment, that it would be quite close to your back. But then when you put heavy armor on, for example, it moves it further away. It's the same bone, but it's further out, so it sits on the outside of the armor. So that it basically solves that problem, which is great. And obviously that's all down to Chris's desire for fidelity and everything to look absolutely perfect.
And it's the reason why you won't be able to pilot ship anything other than a flight suit or civilian clothing. Because you'll have 20 inches of shit on your back, and you'll be like grandma, like sitting on the edge of this chair, because you won't be able to, sit back, and you'll be like, yes, this is ideal.
So that was clothing. Yes.
I have a question for you about this entire presentation. Will you be transcribing it so that it can be posted up on the Relay's website?
No, that's Aaron's job.
Yeah,
this is not Aaron's.
I might write something up if people would like that.
I think you should, because
This is actually really, really interesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
So I just want to kind of skip through the next two bits, which are the armor and then the weapons. Just I'm not going to go into the same details, just really to show you where the kind of differences and some of the stuff that we didn't see in the other screens popped out, because they work in essentially the same way. For armor, it all revolves around the undersuit. As soon as you equip your undersuit, as we can see here, you gain the various children item ports. So you can see armor, the ones on the screen, armor for your torso, your arms, your legs, your helmet. You get your sidearm again, the same as you had on pants. And then we get some other ones. The last one you can see on the screen is spare magazine 1. You get a spare magazine 2. You also get a medical item, a utility item, and 2 weapon slots, which presumably are on your shoulder. But the other thing about the skeleton extension is, if they want, the designer wants, they can have one on your back and they can put the other one on your front. There's no reason why they can't do that, because wherever the bone goes is where the item goes, and whatever the animation information they tell the bone to have, that's how it will animate. So you can have a grenade that kind of is attached to your belt and it maybe doesn't move, or you can have one hanging from a point on your chest and it bounces around when you run. So they can do all that. The other thing, the other reason for sort of pulling out this screen is it actually showed us the pending changes. So if you look on the right-hand side down the bottom, and this answers, I think, a complaint that I saw on Reddit from a few people. So we can see here it says pending loadout change, and it's the Pioneer undersuit, which is what he's just equipping, and that presumably changes when he hits the save button. And then it's got a transfer from, and then underneath that is just blank. And something that I think people were complaining about was the fact that we were just kind of pulling all these items out of a virtual inventory that, they were like, you shouldn't be able to do that. You should have to go to a weapons locker or somewhere in your ship and get your equipment from there, or your undersuit from there. And I think in time that's what will happen, and this kind of hints towards that. So that's why I wanted to.
It's just a placeholder, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if it's alpha, it's the first version we're seeing, but I thought it was kind of interesting that that was there. I won't go into all of the items. The other one that I wanted just to pick out, because it introduces something new, was firstly the armor for the torso, because it had a gadget slot, we can see on the left, and 2 grenade slots. So that was nice. So you can see how as you add more items, you get slots for masses of more equipment. And one of the things I think will be interesting when we actually get into the game is how do we manage all of that, because they're going to be all over the place. So hopefully there'll be different ways of viewing that, so we can see maybe a flat list of all your slots rather than this kind of nested list. I
kind of hope you'll also be able to like create outfits. Like lots of games have just an outfit you can create where it's.
They confirmed it.
Yes,
you can save. You can save a loadout and just select it.
Yeah.
So I'll skip past the arms and the legs because they didn't do anything. The last thing that I wanted to look at on the armor side of things was the helmet, because here we actually see them equipping something to a child slot. So the helmet has a flashlight slot, and it can take a item of type flashlight for a suit flashlight. So we've got our placeholders.
Confirmed you will have loadouts.
Yes.
Also, does that mean that we can get a flashlight that actually works and replace the one we're giving? Because right now the flashlights don't work. I mean, it's like a candle in a jam jar that's attached to the side of your helmet, and it doesn't really illuminate anything.
Did you not see the model for it? It was a candle in a jam jar.
Mm.
And it's a room system, so it actually has its own supply of oxygen. But it does feed from the same tank, so the longer you have your flashlight on, the greater the risk of suffocation.
How do you turn it back on? And how do you turn it off?
That technology is literally decades away. That technology doesn't exist. The other thing I wanted to point out on this screen is if you look in the Melissa's view, which is the picture-in-picture in the bottom right, you can see that Glenn's character, he's got his Moby glass up, and he's still in his civilian clothes. Although in the preview we can see he's fully equipped. He's got the undersuit on, he's got all the pieces of armor, he's attached his light to his helmet, he is ready to go. But he hasn't pressed the save button. Yeah.
Yes.
So all these are just pending, and then he clicks save, and suddenly, again, if you look at Melissa's, you can see the
it all happens.
The action. Yeah, it's all done instantly.
Now, does anyone else think that this breaks the immersion that he doesn't actually sit there and slowly put on all of?
Yes, completely.
I've been actually wondering about that ever since they showed was it the Citizen Con demo when the black guy walked up to a locker, hit use, the screen faded to black and then faded up again, and he changed from civilian to armor. I've been wondering how they're going to do actual changing clothes.
If you're looking at someone and they change clothes, your screen also fades to black, so you can't see it. So then you'll have a tactical advantage
because
in the middle of
modesty,
combat.
right?
Yeah, you'll have a tactical advantage in combat if you take off all your clothes, because all your opponents that are looking at you will be blinded, and one of your colleagues can just shoot them.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to cut. I'm gonna have to end us now.
We're getting to the best bit with weapons.
Do it quickly. You've got like 3 minutes. Go.
No problem. So the weapons, we actually switched to Melissa's character view at this point. It confused me a little because she already has her sidearm equipped. So you can see there she's got her sidearm, it's got a magazine, and it also has a barrel attachment. And I like this because it kind of hints towards how we're going to see attachments and weapon mods working. So they're going to be item ports, and you're just going to be, some guns will have a few things possibly that you can change, some guns will have lots of things, and I really like that part of the game. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that. The other thing I wanted to point out is Melissa's armor, the same actually as Glenn's armor. The weapon slots are different sizes, so you can see the primary one is 2 to 4, and the primary 2 is 2 to 5. So I believe that's allows you to take the railgun, which is presumably a size 5 weapon. So you can carry one railgun. But we heard, I think, from the Gamescom floor that you could, like the heavy armor, you can actually put 2 railguns on. So presumably their slots are both 2 to 5.
Right.
Railgun shot. Swap to another railgun. Railgun shot. Swap.
No. Dude, railguns akimbo.
So second last slide, you'll be glad to know. This was just looking at Melissa had clicked on the spare magazine 2 slot, which is actually given to her by the undersuit, not her armor. And she's been presented, up until now, we'd only really seen a selection of one thing, but this actually shows us here is a list of all things that match the item type that we're looking for, which is weapon attachment magazine. So
my
these are all the
question here
subtypes.
for the magazines is I hope that they do something like Escape from Tarkov and Arma and some games do, where if you use part of the magazine and then you reload, that magazine goes back into your inventory at half full.
It's already in game.
It is?
It's
And it's not
Oh, good.
it's not a case of you just have a total number of bullets, and every time you equip you get full.
I also
you actually have to think tactically.
When you reload, everything fills up.
Yeah.
But when you change clips with the ballistic assault rifle, it does count how many bullets are in the magazine,
Yeah.
and it puts the magazine on your person. And when you reload, it.
The other
gives
thing
you
I like from
magazine that it's most full.
the other thing I like from Tarkov is if you filled your inventory and you reload, you drop that magazine.
Oh.
Because you don't have anywhere to put it, right? So it drops on the ground. And in it, if you double tap R to reload, you actually reload faster, but drop you don't put the first magazine away and grab a new one. You just drop the magazine and reload. So it reloads faster, but you don't. I like that kind of thing. Sorry.
I do as well. Yeah.
So
And I could see CIG putting that into Star Citizen.
I hope they do.
Yeah, so this is the final screen. I just wanted for a complete list to show the unequipping. It also confirms that the railgun is a size 5 weapon.
Yeah.
Because he's got one equipped at the moment and none available. So yeah, all they do is you select the item port, you go in and you press the big red X, and then you save changes and equip, which seems slightly illogical. Save changes and unequip.
Yellow.
I think it's kind of red. It might just be the capture that makes it look yellow. But
because it's blue, because the overall grading for the screen is blue, I think it changes red to yellow.
Okay, so
Perfect.
let's
so that's that.
yeah, let's end the screen share and go back to normal.
Can we though?
Yeah,
Because the stream right now is funky as fuck,
Yeah.
and I like it.
I don't know how.
I think he has to end screen share
Yeah.
first.
Okay,
which
there we
ends
go.
it.
Hello everyone. So let's quickly go through some
Whoa!
questions.
Whoa!
Well, for a split second, I saw myself on all
Yes.
4 screens, and
For-
it was
Glorious.
Oh God,
There we
I never
go.
want to see that again.
So let's quickly go through some questions and then we can start winding this down. So Ronan42 asks, will the breathing mechanic bring more tactics into the FPS? I think so.
Big yes.
Yes.
I think that's the hope. That's the whole reason behind it. Because after all, the breathing mechanic is really just part of the bigger actor systems, actor status system even. And the big part of that is actually stamina rather than breathing. The breathing is how they tell you what your current stamina is at.
Oh, one thing about the stamina system that I want them to reintroduce from one of the very first demos is a little bit of steam on the visor that you get when you were breathing very hard. You'll actually see when you were exhaling from your mouth, you could see steam gathering on the visor. I want that back.
Yeah. So next question, Ronan42 also asks, does the bug spike in the bug report mean they implemented a new feature? No. No.
No,
That's
not at
Gamescom.
all. It means they found bugs that already existed and were discovered through Gamescom playtesting.
Yep.
The robot tells the truth.
Fastcart asks, the Aquila is going up in price in 3.0. Who's investing in CCUs?
I am not, as I already own the Aquila.
I'm getting
I
the
already have a
Aquila
Carrack.
by owning the Carrack, so no.
Carrack or 600i?
Carrack.
Carrack.
Carrack's bigger, so yes, Carrack. Although we haven't seen the latest concept of the Carrack. I mean, as it can be, I think the 600i concept is closer to what the final in-game model will be, and the Carrack is Gurmik's concept that will be changed. Will possibly be changed, but it will be changed.
Yeah. Keep in mind, all of the ships that we've only seen as concepts are likely to change. The Endeavor will probably change. The Carrack will change. All those ships that we've seen that haven't started being worked on, they're going to change. The 890 Jump is probably going to change. And even the games, even the ships that are in game are going to change. They're in 3.0. They're putting out the new Aurora rework. We haven't had an Aurora rework since what, 2015? And then before that,
do you think it's going to be a? When are they going to stop making them reworks and just adding them as new model years?
I think once we get to beta, the point where it's not as much about testing and all of the ships are in, then I think each rework will be a new year model.
Okay.
Next question is by Ronan42. Now that we know the future look of Origin ships through the 600i, any design thoughts on the 300i rework?
I want it to have actual cargo space and a comfy bed instead of a bench that folds out. That's all I like about a 300i. Other than that, I think the Origin design is sexy AF.
AutoDJ, any thoughts?
I think it'll end up with a few more soft curves and nifty angulations around the engines, but for the most part, the 300i should remain, relatively speaking, the same as it already is.
Sunjammer?
I think it needs, but it won't get, a complete overhaul. I don't think it looks like an Origin ship now. We're starting to see the Origin look, and it doesn't look like one at all. So, in theory, and I own one. I own a 315p. It was my starter ship. So
my first ship as well.
And it was kind of the least ugly ship out of the original ones you could choose. But since then, like the Freelancer got an overhaul, and it looks great now.
No, it doesn't. That's a lie.
It looks like a penis.
To any CIG personnel currently watching, redo the Freelancer. Make it look like the original concept art. I'll post that in
that
chat.
one that you like. It was number 3 or whatever that you liked. It was
number 2.
Post it. I want to see the original. I don't think I'm familiar with the original
It's not
concept
the original. Art. It is an original.
It was an original. There were 2 designs. This is the one that didn't win, and it's the one that I like. I am posting it in chat right now. There it is. Go check that out.
CIG, as you well know, doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to ship design. So
come on, look at that thing.
This actually I could just see as a completely different ship.
I could see it as a different ship too, but I want that ship. I don't care where it comes from. I want that ship. It's so good. Oh, that's a light. Oh, I should have that on.
Oh.
Bright light.
Where are we? Sorry. Where was I?
Next question.
Brivals asks, would you like a stamina system similar to GTA San Andreas, working out to increase your stamina?
Also,
No,
GJ
not
already
really.
mentioned that. Yeah.
We've been talking about it, and I am unsure. because there is still, you have to find the balance between simulation and factor of cool. What's fun? More
Yeah.
lights? You've been actually running without lights.
I've actually been running without lights. I forgot to turn on the lights this when we started. I apologize.
You want to see what happens
If you turn on light?
I didn't notice.
Ah!
I still didn't notice.
because you have no eyes.
We'll have to buy some optical
Exactly.
receptors.
So
That
Ronan
would be
40
nice.
Ronan 42 asks, will vehicles be more important with the new stamina system? Run a long way into battle or drive or fly into battle? Probably, yeah.
Yeah, and I think like a dropship that's less seats that bolt you in and more comfy beds is gonna also do more for the morale of the troops that you're dropping in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also from
Like
Ronan.
like a 5-star dropship instead
Yeah.
of
Well, I mean, if you're carted in on the Genesis Starliner,
Mm.
I mean, there is a military variant of the Genesis Starliner, right? Going into battle on that would probably be awesome.
Mm. Yeah, you
Everyone-
can actually make your troop think they're gonna live through it.
Everyone forgets the Genesis Starliner. It's so sad.
And
Such
so
a nice...
they should.
Actually, no.
it's
The,
Master
fantastic.
2000.
look up that
very
ship.
retro, and I love it.
If you look up an image of that ship, I will tell you exactly what's wrong with it. It's backwards. Spin it the other way, looks 100%
Wait,
better.
wait, the Genesis Starliner?
Yep.
What?
Spin it the other way, it looks 100% better.
Same can
Put
be
it-
said about
put
the
it-
Merchant Man.
Put it ass to
No,
front.
no.
Put it ass to front, it's a better ship.
Well, you want it to be the T thing flying.
Yeah.
Mm. No, I don't agree.
Okay. That's just my opinion. Ronan also asks, do you think the scanner turret of the Aquila can be refitted to the gun turret?
I believe they said that is possible. Not going to be in 3.0, but at a later date and time, that should be possible.
With the modularity thereafter, I think you should be able to. I think it was a while ago they said you will be able to build your constellation to whatever you want. You can
Whatever.
have the
Whatever.
Yeah. You can have the cargo from the Aquila. You can have the cockpit from the back end from the Phoenix, the cockpit from the Phoenix, and the turrets from the Andromeda or whatever.
Yeah.
I would like that as well.
Brivals asks, how do you like that the character actor system will govern both stamina and redouts and blackouts?
Big
I think it's
thumbs up.
fantastic.
Agreed.
Yep, one unified system, much better than lots of little systems.
Yeah.
It's actually what they've done is a very elegant solution.
So Spaceship Training Wheels says, just after the 46-minute mark on Happy Hour, Disco said the date ranges for individual items on the global schedule represent start times only. What the heck? I don't think anyone read the global schedule that way. I don't know. I haven't actually seen...
It's a schedule. It's not a release.
Yeah.
You know, it's what they're going to they
It's-
anticipate they're going to be working on at these
No.
times.
It's internal dates, and there was a book that was released. You don't release a book; you publish a book. That explained that these one of the major points for these internal dates is to drive the workforce, to give them motivation. It's not a dead stop for when the thing has to come out. It's just a tool to get the motivation.
Go read the No Bamboozles report that
I
comes
think
out.
he
on-
mentioned that,
on Reddit, because he covers that. The schedules have to be tight to kind of inspire the developers, keep them on a
Exactly.
tight leash. But you know, a release schedule would actually be completely different, because you'd have lots of padding in there, and you'd have time for marketing and whatever, other things, other considerations, not just this is what these guys are meant to be working on for these periods. But if they encounter bugs, these things will move out.
Yep. So I'm one last question, then I'm going to save the rest for next week, because we are just about at end time. So Aronexus asks, Harris, long time no see, super serious question here. Is it mutinous to suggest that Dan Truffin's coiffure is more spectacular than Brian Chambers's? I think that
Yes.
the answer here is actually Eric Kyron Davis's coiffure is the best. Get on his level.
Yeah, but Brian Chambers doesn't have a coiffure. He has something completely different.
Yes.
He is Aslan.
Yeah. Yeah, basically, yeah.
And as I have
Space
no
Viking.
visual sensors, I can't tell any correction at all.
I tell you what we need to do. We need to stick googly eyes on AutoDJ's screen, and then that can be his optical sensors.
So there
I will
are
endeavor to find an update for this.
there are 6 other questions that we unfortunately can't get to today. They are on the list already for next week. So if you asked one that didn't get answered today, come back. It'll be answered next week. That said, Sunjammer, what's coming up from you in the next week? Are you gonna turn that excellent spreadsheet or excellent presentation that you did into an article of some sort?
I can try.
Excellent. I can help if you want. Mr. AutoDJ, what have you got going on in the next week? How's everything over at the
I am
base?
going to be playing music. I will be playing music on The Base, the only station on the spectrum that you can listen to music from over 950 years in the past. You can always find us on the spectrum at thebase.sc.
Check out the base. They're base-stacular.
No.
And Darjanator, where can anyone that's interested in finding you find you?
Well, I am popular on many places through many monikers. On Twitch, I try to stream, but it just doesn't seem to
Happen.
catch on. I'm actually started doing a series of videos on YouTube, which I will be doing one tomorrow. I started a TLDR of Star Citizen development, which is like a 3 to 4 minute video about everything that's happened in the past week, which has gone missing for the past few weeks, but because I had real life issues, so I will be not going there. But TLDR is coming back. But other than that,
Running an audio only one of those, I can only imagine how much more difficult it would be to do a video on.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially after I've been sick for over a week and I can feel my voice going, and I have another podcast.
Yes, you do. In 2
I
hours,
do.
you're going to be on the Astropub with
I will be on the
Mr. Paul,
Astropub
Astropub Paul.
Berserker.
Paul,
King of
Astropub
the Goblins,
01,
Sherry.
Paul Berserker something.
Well, I think every time he introduces himself, he adds another moniker.
Yeah, basically.
Basically, yes. So if you haven't gotten enough of me yet, basically, you can go to the Astropub on Twitch in 2 hours, and I will be there, along with my podcast co-host, Meyer, and I will be grilling him about what it's like to be the more popular one.
And when can people catch Fortnightly Frontier?
Fortnightly Frontier goes live every second Sunday on Meyer's channel. That is Twitch TV.
Well, that's why he's more popular.
/Meyer_test.
Because he takes credit for all your hard work.
Yeah.
He does, but there is a YouTube video released on youtube.com/Fortnightly Frontier on Wednesdays.
Awesome. Well,
It's
thank you all so much for hanging out and being part of the Relay Station this week.
Thank you for having me.
Hopefully we'll have you all on some point soon. Once again, if anyone is interested, I'm going to post again in chat the a link to the charity that has gone up for Nakara's brother who passed away last week. Send him a message if you want, with your support, because he's not having a fun time right now. And yeah, thank you all for listening.
That's putting it mildly.
Yeah, that is putting it mildly. Thank you all so much for hanging out. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you all next week in the verse. And have a good week.
Have a fantastic week, everyone. And remember, don't die in your sleep.
Please.